Welcome to Fostering Godlike Sexuality at Home. Our goal here is to empower parents to teach their children to see sex in a godlike way.
My name is Brigham Elton. I'm a pornography and sexual addiction counselor who've helped thousands of people overcome even the appeal of pornography. And I'm hoping to get out in front of this and try to help parents to set up their homes to chase godlike sexuality from the beginning.
My name's Andrea, a mother of 4, and I'm learning alongside all you listeners and excited to have these discussions. Thanks for joining us. Okay, we are so excited to have our conversation today. We are moving on to an awesome topic that is important for us as we're teaching our kids about healthy sexuality. Parents are always wondering, when and how do I teach the law of chastity, right?
Yeah.
One of the principles we teach is to separate this from your teaching about sex. When you're teaching the anatomy, you're teaching what's happening, and you're trying to send that message of this is a good and godly thing. We're not going to also mix in this and there's this boundary, so be careful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't want to mix the fear and this excitement and hope.
Yeah.
Because then it just fuels confusion.
Yes.
And so allowing these messages to be separate, I think, is really helpful.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so a few things we want to consider when we're teaching the law of chastity is why? What is our reasoning for teaching the law of chastity? We want to go into what do we want to make sure we teach, and how do we want to the message we want to send when we're teaching those whats. And how do we prepare for this? What can we anticipate? Are the moments that show up for teaching this?
So what are some common whys that you see parents initiate their law of chastity conversations?
Yeah, I think it first pops up in a parent's brain when they are, at least for me, when we're reading the scriptures with our kids, okay, now we're hitting this they committed adultery, or don't commit adultery, and the kids are wait, what does that mean? You know, or it's and they committed whoredoms, and what does that mean? And there's kind of all of these terminology things that need to get defined.
Yes.
Right? Either in gospel, in a gospel teaching context.
Yep.
Or even sometimes I've heard parents talk about they have these moments where their kids are wait, how come she's pregnant? Because she's not married.
Yeah.
When they're seeing oh, there's variances in the ways that people use their sexuality, or
totally.
That picture maybe they have of
when people have babies is not accurate.
yeah, exactly. And so I think those kinds of things are a big initiator. Another one is the temple recommend, oh, my kid's going into the youth program and they're going to have a temple recommend, and there's the question about the law of chastity. We need to talk to our kids about that.
Yeah.
Hopefully at that point it's an again moment,
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it does kind of sneak up on you, though.
Yeah, it does.
Especially now with this, my kid maybe just barely turned 11, and now all of a sudden they're
ready for
have this interview, And so I think and I don't know, you don't hear the word sex in law of chastity, and so a lot of times kids have a hard time getting the word law of chastity connected to what it actually is.
Totally, and I even think. I've had moments as a parent where I'm we've taught the law of chastity, and they don't remember.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a little bit of this realization that this needs to be brought up more often.
Yeah.
And discussed. Totally. Yeah. So that there's a memory and a go-to for their brain of what this is.
And I think one thing that we've talked about is it doesn't really matter what your initial why is, if you stay there and you're doing it because of a should, or I got trapped, or I got cornered, then obviously that comes out in the way that you communicate, and it's just okay, let's get this over with, let me kind of throw this out there, you know, instead of the hope is to go okay, we're here because of why ever we're here, what do
we're in this moment where we need to teach it. Yeah. Okay.
Why do I want to teach this to my kids? Why am I doing this? And take some pause to get your own why.
Yeah, to get that higher level why, rather than what was thrown at you.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, he's got an interview coming, I have to, and it's more of a have to, and then as a parent, no, I'm choosing to.
Yes.
Because you can just feel the energy there. And sadly, that have to energy gets connected pretty often with sex,
Totally.
It even happens with the what is sex, the have the talk conversation. As parents sometimes can have this I have to have the talk mindset. And then you can feel that as as a kid. They're feeling this oh, this is this heavy thing my parents have to tell me about.
Yeah, it's this hurdle we have to get over.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
taxes.
Yeah. It's like not this like, hey, there's this awesome thing. Like that's not the energy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
totally a have to energy. And like it's worth it to pause and get past the have to. Like even if you have to say like, yeah, that's a great question. Like what are whoredoms or what is adultery? Like let's talk about this tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. And just gives you a little moment to
Yeah.
get to a different why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And I think like another way that I feel like I've handled it before in the past is like, oh, I have like a one quick phrase for what this is. And then like but we should talk more about that, you know,
Yeah.
that like first pass moment of,
Totally.
oh, they're talking about reserving sex for marriage.
Yeah.
Kind of a phrase.
Okay. Yeah. Can you give me, is that your main one?
Yeah, that would be my main phrase now. Like if
Okay.
I were to go back and use it, I really like the idea of saying reserving sex for marriage rather than like don't have sex except for when you're married. You know? I like taking that don't out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah. I think it is nice to have like an anchor phrase that you can just like, okay, I might be a little flustered, throw my phrase out, and then with the plan of coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. So like when we talk about those higher level whys,
Yeah.
what are some things that you see be really successful for?
So like,
higher
why
level
am I
whys.
teaching the law of chastity itself?
Yes. Yeah.
Honestly, like to me, it kind of comes back to like, why are we teaching sex at all?
Okay.
You know? And like, to me, I want law of chastity to become a protector of sex,
Yeah.
not this like gateway to sex. Does that make sense? Maybe they're kind of similar, but like, I think there's this kind of attitude of like, I have to teach the law of chastity. And so like the focus is the law of chastity, you know?
Yeah.
And like, to me, that's not the focus. Like the focus is like, there's this phenomenal godlike way that you get to connect with people, you know? And like, but it can be really damaging.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it can really like create distance in families. It can ruin communities, right? Like it ruins can even ruin like families, you know? And so I think the key here is that like we're trying to keep this powerful, awesome moment safe.
Yeah.
And like God has these commandments in order to do that. Like his first commandments are engage, like please be sexual to connect and to procreate.
Totally.
But then he has a commandment to protect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I think of some whys for teaching the law of chastity that are important to me is like, I want my kids to feel like they know how to choose, you know, like they know what the options are for choosing and like what the invitation is from God to choose.
Totally.
So I think that, I mean, at its basic, when we're saying reserve sex for marriage, like that's one awesome, great phrase. But then as kids grow and they develop sexual feelings, like what does that actually mean? What is sex and when does it hit that mark of sex? That becomes a totally different thing. But being able to help them formulate something that guides their choices and their decisions is.
I love that why. Like I get to see that. Like I have a couple clients right now who just like, you can see that the parents value their kid being a chooser more than they value the kid making the right choice.
Yeah.
You know? And it's honestly amazing to see this kid who's like 18-ish years old, how like powerful this kid is.
Yeah.
You know? Where I've seen other like 18-year-olds who I've like, the right choice was more important than choosing, you know? And they seem like they just like need to be told. Yeah. And they're like, they aren't the rudder in their ship. Like they aren't driving. Yeah. You know, they're just kind of on.
And some kids will like ride that as long as they can. Like, great, tell me what to do, you know? Like I had a conversation with my 18-year-old this morning and I was like, I think you need to make this choice. And he was kind of like, okay. And then it was like, never mind, I actually don't want to. And it was like, ugh. And then I texted him like 20 minutes later and was like, I am also glad and think it's important and really good that you made your own choice. Yeah. You know, and like I need to communicate that as a parent in these contexts as well.
It's awesome. Because honestly, like I feel like especially it can kind of happen to us as men where it's like we never become choosers. Then like sometimes they'll get married and then they just like their wife becomes a chooser for them too. Like it's crazy to me how I can see people at 30 still have this kind of pattern. Totally. You know, and so what a cool why is like I want to present choice to my kid, you know, and then also give them the direction of their God. Yeah. You know? And
I think that provides a lot of emotional safety too. That like, this isn't a scary thing. This isn't, you kind of mentioned like a watch out for this danger, but like a turn towards this goodness. Yeah. Like these are fences for protecting what's good, not for keeping you completely away from danger.
No. Okay. So as parents, like, identify and like lean into their why, like why they're teaching this to their kid. I think then we kind of transfer to like, okay, like what am I teaching? You know? And I think that why can kind of shape the what. But like, as we kind of give some guidance to parents, like what are some things that are important to you when you think about the what you're teaching?
Yeah. This is something that you and I discussed for quite a while. Like what is the what of the law of chastity?
Totally.
And I love where we landed, you know?
Yeah.
And after we landed there, I went back and I was reading a proclamation to the world, you know?
Yeah.
And like, it's right in there. There's three components that we talk about, right?
Yeah.
Like the first commandment God gave to Adam and Eve pertained to their potential for parenthood as husband and wife. Like his commandment to multiply and replenish the earth remains in force. Like that would be part of what God teaches about sexuality.
Yeah.
Is to engage in it, to make it a priority, that it's good and that it's an important part of your growth towards godhood.
Yeah.
And then also this like the scripture we have that like it helps you become one flesh.
Yeah.
Use sex to help you bond as a couple and to create a new unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that because like it's so easy to just teach the no. You know? And like this no is a protection of a yes.
Yeah.
You know, and I think to boil God's sexual commandments down to just don't have sex before marriage, like is so dangerous.
Yeah.
You know? And like so now this is because of this conversation we have, like this is a thing that me and my clients talk about every single time. Like, okay, what are God's sexual commandments? You know, and like everyone always says, don't have sex before marriage. I'm like, great, okay, what else?
Yeah.
And then they're like, you know, and there becomes this pause. And then sometimes they'll go to like, well, you're also supposed to like have children, like multiply and replenish the earth. Like sometimes they'll get there, you know, but it is like, it's a different way of teaching when it's like, when you're teaching the yeses with the no.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
And one thing that I've really learned as doing this treatment for like 10 years, you know, is that the way to be successful at the no is to be doing the yes.
Yeah.
You know, like if we're not pursuing connection, intimacy, partnership, like then the no becomes way harder.
Totally.
Because it becomes something that like our body just like, I need some outlet for this desire that I have within me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
When I think we have a God who's telling us like, this is the yes, this is the fork, right? We've got this like, use this pressure, this sexual buildup temporarily to get a temporary high. Or you can use it to like multiply, replenish, connect, become one with your partner, you know? And I think that like, with God's commandments, there really kind of is a fork of this choice that is created, right? And like, I think if you don't teach the yes, we're just saying, hey, don't go down that path.
Yeah, we're not pointing them down the path to take. Yeah. Yeah, so I love that like idea that we're not going to teach the no without the yes.
Yeah.
And that like the first two parts are those, like the bond with a spouse and create children. And then, like, as a protection of those two awesome opportunities that God gives us, we have an instruction to, like, reserve this just for marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love to read the, like, the verbiage of the Law of Chastity covenant within the temple is in the general handbook now.
Yeah.
Like, you can go under endowments, and then there's all the covenants listed out with, like, the verbiage of the Law of Chastity.
Yeah, the explanation.
And, like, I like to actually read that verbiage and then start a breakdown. Like that's kind of my what is like, I want to have this overarching, there's a huge yes here, but like in order to protect that, God has a no. Let's read the verbiage of the no and try to break it apart together.
Yeah.
Go
over that really quick.
Yeah. Let's read the verbiage of the Law of Chastity in the general handbook.
Okay.
Right. It says, keep the law of chastity, which means having sexual relations only within a legal marriage between a man and a woman, which is according to God's law. Now, I would want this visually in front of whoever I'm talking to.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that we can kind of break it down step by step.
Okay.
Right? And the first thing is keep the law of chastity, which, that's even going to be there. Temple question is going to be pretty similar to that. That's all the information. Keep the law of chastity. But then it gets to this, like, how?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? And it starts with, which means having sexual relations. And I would pause there.
Totally. When this was like a change in the temple, that was the thing that stood out the most to my husband. He was like, instead of it saying, don't have sexual relations only and except with who you're married to, it's saying, have sexual relations.
Yeah.
That's like the first statement. Please do that.
Yeah.
Just only within a legal marriage. And then it defines what that means, right? Yeah. But it's like telling your kid, like, if they're going out for something with their friends, like, hey, don't do anything dangerous, don't get in trouble.
Yeah.
And try to have fun.
Yeah.
But like instead being like, hey, have fun. And I hope you make good choices.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally. Like, I love that, like, with this pause here, like, it's have them. You know, like the first 2 commandments from God that he gave to Adam and Eve when they first exist weren't like, they were go and be, connect, and create families.
Yeah,
like that matters. And then I would go to this, like, only within a legal marriage between a man and a woman, right?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of breakdown that I would be aiming in here. One is like the having sexual relations, right?
Okay.
Then I would go to like, okay, what is a sexual relation?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like at what point does a relation become sexual?
Yeah.
You know? And then what does it mean to have a legal marriage between a man and a woman? And why does it say according to God's law? Like those are like all these little
pieces
that I'm trying to break out of this huge paragraph.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know?
And I think with kids, like this can be done in pieces. Right? Like,
yes.
Like you're saying, this can be blown up pretty big. And depending on the age of your kid, how deeply you break down each one of these things is going to change. And actually creates a great opportunity for you to keep this conversation evolving of like, hey, we're going to teach these main points of the law of chastity. And next year, when we hit this Temple Recommend interview again, before we go in, we're going to talk about the law of chastity and we're going to hit these things deeper.
Totally.
Yeah.
And like, let's kind of break that down a little bit. So like, let's say that you have like just entering the youth program.
Yeah.
Like 10, 11-year-old person, right? Like what would you be kind of aiming at to pull out for that kid?
Yeah. I would want to be aiming at that God wants us to have sexual relations and he wants us to reserve those for marriage.
Yeah.
And that's probably all I would hit at that age.
Like at that age, I don't think I would be going into the details of what is a sexual relation and what isn't.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like I would just be like, in general, this is.
I wouldn't be talking about like, oh, and that could be pornography and that could be masturbation if that's how I felt, you know, or I wouldn't be talking about where the lines are with your boyfriend and girlfriend at that stage. Like that's not where they're at. Yeah.
And like, where do you think you would enter into like, where is the physical intimacy versus sexual intimacy line? Like at what age do you think like that's where you would start teaching it?
I would probably start teaching that closer to like 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
and it would depend on your kid and their group of friends and what they've been exposed to and all of that
and their
kind of
interest
stuff.
level in that realm.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think that, which I think is awesome.
I think those conversations are better if they're before they start dating.
Yeah.
Just because like there's some concept of it. And then when they are dating, it's not the first pass, like where they're like, I don't want to have this conversation with you, mom and dad. Like, they're going to be feeling that a little bit when they're dating. Like, I don't want to have these boundary conversations with you, but it's going to be a second pass. So they won't have as much processing to do.
Totally. I totally agree. Another thing that I'd be trying to hit here is also this, like, how awesome and powerful marriage is, you know? Like, I think this is an awesome opportunity to be like, look how, like, much God respects marriage, you know? That, like, even marriages that aren't, like, it's not saying within a temple ceiling. Like, it's not saying. Like, it's saying within a legal marriage, you know?
Yeah, something that the community recognizes on some level. Yeah.
You know? And it's just, like, the community recognizes marriage, the government, like, and God recognizes marriage, you know? Like, it's a moment where you're bonding families.
Yeah.
You know? And I just like, I think marriage can very easily be like not as big of a deal. And I feel like it's constantly fading.
Yeah.
Where our culture isn't seeing it as like this awesome bonding commitment thing.
Totally.
You know? And like, I don't believe that. And like, to me, this is an opportunity for me to go like, hey, this is also like, marriage is freaking awesome, you know? And like, God respects marriages. And it's like totally a bonding of families.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. It's a great thing to bring up at that age.
I'd like to go back to this, like, what is a sexual relationship? Like, as we kind of hit these, like, older kids that are, like, starting to enter dating, or maybe a kid who is dating, right?
Yeah.
And they're, like, kind of wondering, like, okay, where is the line? Like, at what point is this becoming sexual? I want to speak to that.
Yeah, okay. So, like, maybe ages 14 to 16, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I would say 14 through dating.
Okay,
you know,
awesome.
like, where, like, this kind of conversation. But I want to be the first influence, you know?
Yeah.
I want to be, and so, like, I would hit this around 14.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, like, let's hit this, like, when does physical intimacy become sexual intimacy?
Yeah, that's the question, really, right?
Yeah.
That, like, we want our kids to see physical intimacy as a pathway towards sexual intimacy on some level. And that, like, it begins with these, like you were telling me earlier, like, these descriptions that we can put words to of our expressions of affection for each other. But then it moves into something that's kind of beyond words, right?
Yes.
And is embodied.
And so I think we're trying to help, like, for me, I don't want to just draw a line for my kids.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I don't want to be just like, here's the line. And like, honestly, they're kind of listening for that. And so sometimes I would be like slow to just like put the line down. Like I would try to teach them, okay, let's talk about how physically intimacy moves to sexual intimacy. Like I want to teach them that principle before I would ever give them a recommended line. Yeah. Because a lot of times they're just looking for that and they're just going to follow it. Right. And so like I'm looking for mental participation as we try to teach like how do we know when physical intimacy is becoming sexual?
Yeah. And this is how we define that piece of like what is a sexual relationship, you know?
Totally. Yeah. Totally. And so one of them is like one that you just mentioned, you know, like with physical intimacy, like I think there's verbiage to it, you know? Like I'm giving you this hug because like I'm with you. I want to comfort you. I want to be there with you. Like even kisses are like, man, we are a special relationship, you know? Like I want to connect with you. I love you. I'm invested in you. I'm invested in us. Like
the longer kisses like this, like I feel this passion in the moment for you, you know?
Yeah. Like all of me wants you. My like heart, my mind, my like spirit, like I like wants to be with you, you know? But I think eventually like your touch gets beyond words. Like it's very hard to put verbiage to like sexual connection. Yeah. You know? And it's kind of this like it's a spiritual, like it's beyond verbiageable word.
Yeah. You know? And I really think it's meant to be. You know, like our bodies are meant to be the speakers.
And so like for me, like if I have a hard time verbally putting verbiage to my affection, I think it's a sign that my affection has become sexual. And like this is what I want my kid to learn. Signs that my physical affection is becoming or is sexual.
Yeah. And not as like like you've made this big mistake and this is dangerous, but this is like a learning opportunity. Like, oh, this is what this is, you know? And oh, this is where I want to go with it. This is where I want this is what I want to reserve.
One thing that I like to do with clients is it's like, I'll like, especially when their parents aren't here, but sometimes even with their parents, it depends on how open they are. But they'll be talking about their girlfriend and be like, oh, wow, do you want to have sex with her? And they're like, you know, and they're hesitant. And then eventually they'll be like, and I actually will start nodding my head at them. And then they'll be like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, as you should. Like, it's so healthy for you to want to. Yeah. You know? And like that, like desire that you feel within you to connect with someone that way is good, you know? And then the question is, okay, how do you manage that desire?
Yeah, within the level of relationship that you are capable of right now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. According to your age, according to your maturity, according to how well you and your partner can hold boundaries, you know?
Yeah, like, to how well you are connecting in other ways. Yeah,
totally. And like, is this sex with her? Is this just sex? Yeah. You know? Like, I think letting them know a little bit, though, that like that desire is actually good. You know, I think really is freeing for them and allows them to speak about it. It's not like, oh, I want to have sex with her, so I'm bad. Yeah. You know, or so like,
and I shouldn't.
Yeah. So my parents now need to let us not hang out anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? But it's like, yeah, I want to. I can. And when that's acknowledged as a parent, I would feel so much safer. They're like, oh, yeah. Okay. We both know that this exists, you know? Yeah. And now it becomes about handling it. And honestly, as a parent, like my amount of I feel safe with this kid being with this person just went up. Yeah, when a kid can verbally admit that. Yeah. Let's talk about some other signs of like being able to identify that like a physical intimacy has become sexual intimacy.
Yeah, I think.
So as we make this attempt to like teach how sexual intimacy progresses from physical to sexual intimacy, like before we start drawing lines for our kids, like what would you be teaching about like how physical intimacy progresses to sexual intimacy?
Okay. I would probably want to be making them aware of this space where like what we are doing can be either mentally aimed at physical expressions of love, and then it can also be shifting towards sexual expressions of love. Like the same behaviors can have different meanings. Okay. And then they shift deeper into sex. Yeah. And I would maybe talk through like whether that goes from like a kiss to like a passionate kiss to a makeout to a laying down makeout to a hands under the clothes to your bodies like rubbing against each other. Yeah. And like that rhythm getting passionate and intense. Like all of that stuff is this progression towards the brain saying, hey, this is a safe place. This is a place to be vulnerable, to be close, to feel good with your partner,
Yeah.
you know?
Totally.
And your body kind of just lets you go there
Yeah.
and make that shift and transition, you know?
Yeah.
And the more stimulated you are, the further you are in that progression.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, like for me, I would be trying to use things that like kids see that we can kind of both evaluate a little, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so like I think I would use like a PG-13-ish sex scene a little bit to kind of talk about how like this physical intimacy progresses to sexual intimacy.
Yeah, you might have to use one from like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
To get that progression. But
I understand. But like, even if it's fast and it's not really my exact lane, like there still is this like progression of like tension between us. Like, do we like each other? Date? Like their first line is like, do we like each other? And like, can we both actually admit to each other that we like each other?
Yeah.
Right? Then can like we be one-on-one?
We'd be exclusive. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Which even sometimes in our movies is just a date, but like there is some level of like you and I are just together, me and you, you know? And then like the touch starts, you know, and there's like the first touch, you know? And a lot of times now in movies, it's a first kiss and the kiss immediately becomes sexual. But like in that is where I would want to be like, look, can you see this? Like, can you feel this when you watch a movie like this?
Yeah.
You know, and then can you see that like all of a sudden there's this, okay, yes, we both choose each other and there's this like connection that comes via this touch. Like that touch is actually physical, right? And then there all of a sudden becomes this like rhythm and the breathing together and the movement. And like now it's becoming
this like we're working
sexual.
In concert together towards a common embodied
it's less about this expression of, oh my gosh, we feel the same way about each other.
Okay.
We're in the same emotional space. Now it's this like our bodies are working in concert together.
Yeah,
right.
I love that.
I love that verbiage that you just used. And like, and then that moves to sexual intimacy. And so I would want to like kind of use movies, even though like they're not the best way, but they are like, it's better than like me trying to act it out for them or whatever, you know? And so like, I think that gives me an idea to help them see like, this is how a relationship and sex progress, you know?
And that was such a great overview. I mean, you started with the like, do we like each other tension?
Yeah.
And then you ended at sex. And like connecting those pieces in one overarching view is such a healthy way for our kids to see.
Yeah. And again, the goal is to see the progression, right? And then like later in my life, like, yeah, I want to tell my story with my wife. You know, and talk about the like tension of do we like each other or not, you know? And like then this like, okay, our first touch and like what it meant for us. And it meant this idea that we were both there and invested and, you know, and then my wife was less invested than me after our first touch, you know, but like then we kept misaligning and then we would keep coming back together and kept choosing each other. And then all of a sudden we became in line. And then we freaking wanted to have sex. Did we?
Yeah.
No. We waited, you know, but like we wanted to.
Yeah.
You know, and we actually even like read this book about sex and we even had this expressions of like, yeah, I'm excited to have sex with you. You know, but like
and that wanting and waiting were such an important piece of that part of your relationship.
Totally, right? And like I think my goal here, as much as it's to, I want my kids to have a healthy boundary and a line.
Yeah.
You know? But I want it to be theirs. And so in order for it to be theirs, I have to teach the whole progression.
Yeah.
And then kind of let them pick.
Yeah. I really like, I don't know, this is just really standing out to me, this idea of like wanting and waiting. Like we don't just want our kids to wait. We want them to want it and wait.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we want to be teaching this in a way that
allows space for both.
Allows space for the wanting and puts that in a godly sphere.
Yeah.
And puts the waiting in a godly sphere.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Because it is, both of them are godly. The wanting and the waiting. Yeah. So then this is at the point where I would start giving my child a list of lines that I've seen people do. You know, like I've seen a bajillion lines that parents have set, that like state presidents have set, that bishops have set, that couples have set.
The individuals,
for like when I want to, like when physical intimacy becomes sexual for me and where like as I'm waiting, but wanting, sure, but waiting, like where I want to stop and then wait.
Yeah. Where I want to give, where do I want to open the door for the wanting and where do I want to shift and focus on the waiting?
Totally.
Yeah.
And so here are like, let's just list some different lines that we've heard of. Do you have one that you would like to share?
Like I've heard people talk about like no French kissing.
Okay.
Right? Like
okay.
That might be one.
And French means your
like
tongue is
with
involved.
your tongue involved, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I've also heard that one, like, maybe not, the make out, like, don't make out. You know, like, there's no reason for repetitive kissing. Like, kissing should not last more than 5 minutes. And I remember kids in my high school who would, like, literally set a timer. And they would just be like, okay, like, as much as we can do in 5 minutes, but we're not breaking the rules, so we don't have to talk to our bishop or whatever, you know? I've seen some bishops, couples say that, like, look, like, as long as clothing stay on, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, like, we can kind of even manually touch each other's genitals over clothing, but, like, as soon as you're under clothing, you have now broken the sexual relations boundary.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think touching genitals with or without clothing is another line. Like, just don't touch genitals, don't touch breasts. I've heard that one too.
And that's like in the Strength of Youth, right? Like, very little like hard lines stayed in the new Strength of Youth, but one of them was like touching the private parts of another person. I think that is the verbiage that stayed. I have some couples who decide that, like, vaginal penetration is sex. And as long as it's not vaginal penetration, we aren't having sex.
So all the things outside of that, outer course.
Oral sex.
Right.
Yeah, like oral sex, which is kind of still technically intercourse. And then all the outer course, which is like rubbing the penis in between the vulva, like the labia. Like, that's not sex. And so, yeah, like, that's not where my line is. But
according to some people's definition of a sexual relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, I don't agree with that. But yeah, I want to tell my kid that, like, I don't agree with this, but this is one.
Yeah, that you will hear and see people define it everywhere.
Yep.
Because I think it is sometimes shocking when kids are like, wait, what? You know? Yeah. And then there's a lot of, like, trying to conceptualize that. And so giving them that, like, spectrum is
because, like,
helpful.
Even, like, soaking or whatever is, like, it's not as real as people think it is, but it's become the joke of BYU, you know? That, like, people will put their penis in the woman's vagina, but they won't, like, thrust or whatever, and so they're saying that that's not sex.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or they'll have someone else shake the bed because they weren't doing it, you know? And it's like, okay, you know? But, like, some people are going to pretend that that's not sex.
Right. Right.
You know? Or that's not sexual, because we're not even saying sex. We're saying sexual relations.
Yeah.
You know? But then I want to end with kind of saying, like, here, look, this is what I believe.
Yeah.
You know? And, like, if I was going to date again, and I don't have to say what we did or didn't do, you know? But if I was going to date again, this is where I would have put the line.
Totally.
You know? And for me, I loved what actually my stake president said about, like, look, like, be vertical. You know? And, like, if you're going to make out with someone, like, have at least 3 feet on the floor. Even if you're sitting on a couch, you can stay vertical. You know? But, like, be vertical in your physical intimacy, in your progression to, and then wait for the horizontal.
Wait for anything past that. Yeah.
And, like, I want to be open about, like, you know what? There were times where I didn't do that. Like, where I crossed where my line was and I, like, felt it. Yeah. And I'm like, I regret that. Like, I even regret crossing that line before marrying your mom. Yeah. With her. Yeah. You know? Because, like, I felt like we were not waiting. You know? And it's like, it's awesome that we wanted, but we wanted to want and.
Yeah, we want that balance. We want both things to exist. They're both good.
And you're going to, like, most kids are going to cross their line.
Yeah.
You know? And then you're going to realize, okay, we crossed that line. As a couple, let's maturely talk about it. Yeah. And then let's bring it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And sometimes that's a sign that, like, hey, I want to shift my line a little bit. Like, I want to shift it one way or the other.
Totally.
I don't know, you know?
The fear also that I have, and I want to explain this to my kids, is that, like, if you set the line, sometimes the hard part about a set line is that you then get to that line every stinking time you hang out, you know? Yeah. And, like, to me, that would be a danger. Like, I don't want my relationship to be that we, like, get together and we hit the line every day. Yeah. You know? Yeah. That, like, I wouldn't be wanting hitting that line at a frequency above 50%.
So maybe that's part of your line.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, this is the line, but we only get there 50% of the time.
Yeah.
That's another important piece.
Yeah.
Another thing that I can think of there's 2 things that I want to highlight here. It's just that I would want my kids highly involving God in establishing their line. Yeah. Like, we talk about establishing their perspective of sex. Like, God knows them. God knows their intentions. God knows their desires. God knows their capabilities. And they can receive revelation on, like, where is that line? And sometimes that's going to be like, will you help me discover what that line is? Will you help me recognize it when it comes, you know? And then be able to define it and create something that I feel like I'm living in integrity with, you know? And then I guess if my kids ask my opinion, like, what would be a good line for you, Mom? I would say, like, privacy. Like, if what we are engaging in physically, I would not want anyone walking in on and being able to watch for 5 to 10 seconds of and feel comfortable with, then I would want that saved for marriage.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. I want to come back to your God thing. Like, I just had this young couple, like, they're like, he's like planning on going on a mission, pre-mission age couple, you know? And he's in the course right now. And like, he was just in this new relationship and they had to define the line and they involved God in their line creation.
Yeah.
You know, where they were like, okay, like we as a couple need to set a line, you know? And it's like, okay, like, what do you think like God would want for us? And they like just letting God be part of their physical intimacy verbiage and sexual intimacy verbiage. What an awesome starting point for that relationship. Like, totally. I mean, there's a 1% chance that couple ends up getting married post his mission, but like still to like
but it's higher now.
That. Yeah. Like to involve God in that line creation is just awesome.
Yeah. And one of the most important ways we can enable them involving God in that creation of their line is to help them get a picture of what that progress is from physical intimacy to sexual intimacy, helping them understand like, the body closeness and the body rhythms and the behaviors that emerge as sexual intimacy develops. When they can see a picture of that, then they have something to go to God and say like, hey, where is the line? What about this? What about that? You know?
Yeah.
And they're not just dependent on what they've heard their friends talk about,
totally. Right? Yeah, I love that you brought that full circle because really like the purpose of the what here is to teach how physical intimacy to sexual intimacy progresses.
Yeah, awesome.
The last portion we want to hit here is like how, like as a parents, it's like, okay, we're ready for this conversation. We want to have this conversation. Like how are we going to actually have it and how can we prepare for it? Like we've gone over this a bunch of different times as we talked about a bunch of formal conversations, but like what are some things that you would like to remind our listeners of?
I want to just highlight like partner processing. Talk with your partner, process like how do we feel about having this conversation? What's the tone we want to set?
Yeah.
You know, and what anchor message will help bring us back to that feeling we want to create in this conversation. I also think it's great to just have a quick answer to like those in the moment questions of what is adultery and what is the law of chastity? And like when they ask those things, what is it going to be like? Yeah, let's talk about that. We'll plan a time. Or are you going to have a more specific answer to then build off of? And then the follow-ups, right? Like just following up and recognizing, especially at those young ages when you're teaching the law of chastity, they need repetition.
Totally.
My experience has been that between the ages of 10 and 12, when I think that my kids would be like super clued into like, oh, okay, that's what the law of chastity is. They're not. And like a month later, they're like, wait, what does that mean again? Yeah. And they just need us to speak it multiple times.
And like, I think that starts with in your partnership, right? Like post your law of chastity conversation, there's like a debrief, right?
Yeah.
And in that debrief, you're going to have these things like, man, I don't know if this landed, or like, I wish I would have said this.
Yeah.
Those are awesome. That's like follow-up fodder.
Yeah.
You know? And just like, okay, like I wish I would have said this. Okay, great. Like, how quickly are you going to tell our kid that? And then maybe I'll delay mine that I'm like, oh, I hope they got this. I'll delay that for a couple weeks and then I'll come back with it. And so like your debrief can be a follow-up planning. And I think if you're good at the debrief,
I love that.
The follow-up kind of comes naturally.
Awesome. Another principle to consider for the how is like, what is your base material? You know, like like the reference material that you're going to use. You talked about like the verbiage of the law of chastity in the handbook. We can use the For Strength of Youth. We can use the proclamation. We can use the scriptures. Like we can use these bases to then be starting points to build off of our conversation. And so I think just reviewing what those options are and then choosing what you feel great about that helps you connect to like your anchor message and the tone you want to set.
Totally. And I think one thing to remember as a parent is like, this isn't a hole-in-one course, you know? Like this is like, you're going to hit this ball like 150 times. Like it's fine.
Yeah,
The goal's not to like knock the ball out of the park, you know? And so I think sometimes this like, we're not sure exactly what we want to do freezes parents, you know? And I would honestly like just start going and then you're going to like, let this be a journey with your child, not this like fence, like signpost, you know? Like it's not a one-time thing. And like, if you know that going in, I think that it becomes less of like, we have to do this perfect.
Totally. And it's really important that it isn't a one-time thing. Like who they are at 11 is so different than who they are at 16 and so different than who they are at 18, you know? Totally. And so we want to be living in a space where there's opportunity for progressing and shifting these conversations and redirecting where we want to focus.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to review the highlights of what we discussed here. Like first, our why. We want to land on our own why for why we want to teach the law of chastity. Create something that's maybe higher level than what initially we enter in with.
Yeah, totally.
Next, like what do we want to teach? First, we want to focus on like God wants us to have this experience. That his laws about and teachings about sex are a focus on like, this is an awesome opportunity I am providing for you. And the secondary thing is like the protection for that.
Yeah, I love that.
And then as we teach like what a sexual relationship is, we want to give an overview of the progression of sexual arousal. Like we want to talk about that and give some details, enough so that our kids could then have some picture in their mind and they can learn to draw their own line as they involve God.
Yeah.
Which is so awesome because you and I sat here and conversed about this. Like, how do we teach this line? How do we teach this line? The reality is let God teach it.
Yeah.
You know, let him be the teacher and you just open that door.
And I love the principle here of like this want and wait together. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That like we are trying to help our kids feel really great about the want and feel really great about the wait.
Yes.
That they're both important.
Yeah. And I think.
And then the how we're going to teach this, like this is an ongoing conversation. This is something that progresses as they progress. This is something that we want to have some anchor messages and tones that we land on and return to.
Yeah, we're just going to keep swinging.
Yeah.
Like the goal here is like keep going after it, follow up and go over and over again.
Great. Thanks for joining us for this discussion today. We hope it was valuable for you and your families. Our website, trueconnectionsrecovery.com, has a bunch of resources that you can access to get support from us.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways we're trying to help individuals, right? Whether it's through like individual recovery, like partner support, even like parental support, like how can I set my home up as a place for success?
Yep. We will be putting like technology management resources, other educational tools, or like workshops that might be up and coming in the area.
Just trying to provide ways for like families to feel supported, right? And so all of that you can find there on that website.
Mm-hmm. The more that this gets shared and like as you talk about it with others that you know, like the discussions kind of flow and we can all grow in this area together.
Yeah, we really succeed as a community.
Yep.
Thank you.